Welcome everyone to episode 22 of the Exoskeletons and Wearable Robotics podcast. We have with us Dr. Tom Sugar with the Wearable Robotics Association and myself, Bobby Marinov, with the Exoskeleton Report. And today we're doing something a little bit different. It's going to be a recap of Tom's travels to RehabWeek 2025. That was a pretty big medical technology, medical robotics, and medical exoskeletons conference that took place in Chicago, May 12th to the 16th. Even if we do end up publishing this episode a little bit later, I wanted to get Tom's time now, capture his thoughts and impressions while they were still fresh. And before we begin, special thanks to our Patreons. As of recording this, we have our VIP tier supporters, Volker Bartenbach, Rita Vasquez Torres, Minmar, and our corporate level sponsors, Humotech, Axivo, HeroWare, and Digity. Thank you very much for sponsoring this effort, both financially and morally. If you'd like to see more of this type of content, please consider supporting us, supporting the podcast, supporting the weekly newsletter at the Exoskeleton Report Patreon website. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Bobby. I just got back from Chicago and enjoying myself. And I guess today we're just going to do a brief discussion on the RehabWeek 2025. So I've pulled up the main homepage, and I think some things I wanted to talk about at the beginning was how many participating societies. So this year, they got many different groups to work together and collaborate and put on a wonderful conference. I think they had over 13 or 1400 attendees. So I know they said it was very large. Maybe it was even a record. But the point was that by working together and having a large group of societies, many people could link up, such as ICOR, the International Consortium of Rehabilitation Robotics, which they typically host a conference. Functional Electrical Stimulation. ISART is an organization dedicated to the rehabilitation technology. A Society for Virtual Rehabilitation. ACRM, we've talked about them before, where they are a organization that thinks about rehab medicine and puts on conferences in one of the older organizations. Modus Academy, which Wandercraft and Exoskeleton Report are working with. Master classes in neurotechnology, and RESN, Rehabilitation Engineering Assistive Technology Society of North America. So it was a group of participating societies to really make it work. I spent a lot of my time in the exhibition hall, so I'll be talking about a lot of that today as well. But at the conference, they had an exhibition hall, they had social events, they had scientific papers, and as I said, they had the different scientific organizations there.
So, wow, we don't get to see that too often in the world of exoskeletons and wearable robotics, where different organizations have come together. So on the occupational side, that would be, I guess, the equivalent of WEARA, V-Day, Assist Association, American Bionics, and others coming together, working together to create one conference.
Yeah, and it was well done, because by putting together a conference with lots of different groups of people, you had PTs and OTs and engineering professors, and you had the exhibition hall was large and had a lot of groups there.
So I didn't get to go there, unfortunately, but what I'm hearing from you is that it was divided into two, that you had lectures going on continuously, presentations and events, and then there was also a presentation, like almost a convention showroom floor.
Right. And so I'm most comfortable about talking about the showroom floor, because that's where I spent a couple of days.
And before you get into that, another thing that's on my mind is, what was this more theoretical based? to show research, or was this more on the applied side to get physical therapists and medical professionals some face time and demo time for them to touch and feel the different new technology that is emerging in their field?
No, I'd say at the exhibition hall, it was definitely much more a place where people could come, touch, try on devices, and understand the technology that's being sold currently. Upstairs at the in the presentation hall, then there was professors, presenting on the next generation technologies, and there was a poster session in the exhibition hall where I was, where students could talk about some of their research work and things like that. So there was kind of a upstairs, there was presentations, downstairs, there was a poster session and also an exhibition session. Exhibition
Awesome.
hall, I guess I would say.
Cool. And then what is some of the technology that you saw that while you were there?
Where I was very pleased, I think I made this comment to Bobby already, was there was a lot of exoskeleton technology being showed off, a lot of devices being shown to enhance help in mobility and rehabilitate and things like that. So I was impressed with how big the exhibition hall was and how many people were there and trying on different things. So I'm just going to maybe go down a list of some of the products that I saw and in no order of importance. So one of the first companies I saw was a RobotCT, and they have a lot of core products in the medical household use and selling components. So in some of their core products, they had a rehabilitation exoskeleton for lower limb, for people that maybe had spinal cord injury or other neurological conditions, and it could be used in hospitals or rehabilitation departments. And so they had a system with, powered hips and knees, and so people were using that device. They showed off a device for a child's exoskeleton, a kid to go, which would be for children's rehabilitation. And they had a system with, a lot of times it had different colors or different paint schemes, try to get children excited about wearing an exoskeleton device. They had devices, bedside devices, where if you were laying down on a bed, you could put your leg in this device and you could do some joint rehabilitation for your leg. It reminds me of some of those continuous passive mechanisms, but this is a motorized system.
Yeah, and I think this one gets wheeled to the bed, like let's say past surgery, you haven't stood up in a few days to get some initial mobilization.
Yeah.
But that is so cool that you were able to see these, to touch these,
Yep.
have people try them out, because I've only seen these over the internet. I was double checking now to make sure that these are inside the Exoskeleton Reports device catalog, and they are indeed there.
Right. Yeah, I saw all three of these devices. The stand assisting robot, yeah, it might have been there actually, where you stand on it and then you can drive around. And so at least it gets you standing back up again and, moving around. So maybe, it could help you with just getting up out of bed and having your heart, move your blood up and down, up and down from your legs.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I don't have it in the catalog.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But
Household systems, again, those medical systems that I talked about, some of these systems you could also take home with you. They said it's household use. So again, I've talked about these two systems already. And then they definitely are a large robotics company where they'll sell motors, wheels, omnidirectional bases, and things like that. So that was a company, and they want to really, like, go back home. They really want to be a a robotics company that works as you age gracefully, right? Because they want to think about healthcare, industry safety, and things like that. So it was interesting.
Yeah, wonderful that you got to see and touch
Yep.
these devices firsthand. Who else was there?
So the next company was there was XoMotion. So XoMotion had a device to help with a spinal cord injury. So it's a hands-free upright mobility device, and it allows you to work self-balancing, hands-free, complex walking motions. And they had people could try on the device, and then they had a booth where people were using the device. And so
Did you see a lot of people trying it out?
so I did. I saw, yeah, people were, they were allowing people to put on the device. Yep.
But you didn't have a chance to like strap yourself
I didn't.
in it.
Yeah.
That's too
I'll
bad.
talk about this later. I was working, helping out in another mobility, not really an exoskeleton, but another mobility device. And so I went around and tried on, went around and just took pictures and talked with people.
So how did it look to you? Because usually these self-balancing exoskeletons tend to be heavier, larger, noisier.
No, I don't think it was heavier, larger, or noisier because there was a couple. There was also, we'll talk about that next. The Wandercraft was there. No, I think it was impressive.
And this is part of that whole initiative to have gait assist exoskeletons not require crutches or other balancing tools. So your arms are actually free for you to be able to walk around and perform tasks.
Right.
So I'm surprised that it sounds what you're saying that they were not one but two of these self-balancing
Yep.
gait assist exoskeletons at the conference. They used to be quite a rarity
Right.
once upon a time, and they continue to be rare, to be honest.
Right. Another devices that were there, Fourier Rehab was there, and they focus on medical training and therapy, upper extremity rehabilitation, and lower extremity rehabilitation. So they had quite a few devices there. They had an arm modus device, which would help you to train in reaching tasks. And so, maybe you had a stroke, or let's see if it'll go there. But they had a device there where you'd put your neurologically impaired arm, and you could reach out, and it's a cable driven system, and you would do a lot of times what people work on is reaching feeding, because you want to work on activities of daily living, right? Can you reach out, grab something from a plate and feed? So they had that device there.
Was this powered or was this passive?
It's powered.
Powered. Oh, so as it kind of reminds me in concept to the male by Hukama.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's some devices by Hokoma, and I'm just trying to think out loud. There's some devices also by out of MIT that had, some of the original work by Dr. Ego Krebs doing the reaching and things like that.
Yeah, and some we've seen them be like counterweight and spring based. Some we've seen motorized. That's why it's like it was not entirely obvious from the picture what that one was.
Right. So they had our devices, but also they're working on leg devices as well. So a lower limb exoskeleton with a supporting frame, and then you could walk. And they were showing off this device, and it's they have a balance frame. So this is a different methodology, which I think it definitely has some purposes. So by building a frame for balance, then you can get in the device, walk around, use your arms and things like that, right? Because this frame will make sure that you're not going to fall over, right?
Yeah, and from what I remember, it also follows the natural gait cycle. So it's not a static frame. It moves with you and with your hips.
Right.
Yeah, and quick recap: it used to be Fourier Intelligence, and then last year the company has rebranded to Fourier, and it has Fourier, which has the humanoid robots, and Fourier Rehab, which continues its mission to creating physical rehabilitation devices.
But they were
Their journey continues.
right. I talked to one of the CEO/founders, an Owen Teo, and they talked about, so I'm going to picture on this picture, they had a humanoid robot there because they talked about blurring the lines where humanoid devices will at some point work in the hospitals as well. And so they had a working functional humanoid device at the conference.
I remember a few weeks back I featured a research paper in the weekly newsletter that had that exact hypothesis. They were using humanoid robot for sit to stand assistance. So rather than having a medical professional blowing out their back by trying to raise patients or transfer people, it was a humanoid robot that was doing those awkward and often dangerous and damaging movements. So you're saying that they brought one, and we're talking about that exact application too.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Fascinating.
Yep. And so thinking about, again, to end on Fourier, they're thinking about, arm devices you can rehabilitate your leg while sitting, devices for your arm to play games. Let's say if you had a stroke, motorized systems for your arm, motorized systems for your leg. So, a suite of devices. Okay.
Phenomenal.
Another company was NextStep Robotics, and they are developing ankle devices. I'm going to call this an ankle orthosis. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they call it, but so it's a device to help you pull your foot up. So let's say you have drop foot after a stroke, or let's say, your foot's, it's hard for you to lift. What happens is your muscles get really strong. Your calf muscle is really strong. And so it's dominating and your foot is plantar flexed or pointing downwards. And you need, let's say, some assistance or a motor to pull yourself up. So they have a device where you can put the device on in about 1 to maybe maximum 2 minutes. I did wear this device. You put the device on, you pop it on to, they have I think they even called it like a foot crampon device. You put a crampon device on your shoe, and then you pop on the motor, and then as you walk, it watches you. And let me see if I remember right. They asked me to take 10 to 20 steps to kind of asked to see my motion, and then it started to follow me and assist me. And you could add more or less motor assistance. So it was an interesting device. They also talked about that this foot crampon device has measurement tools in there, so they know how many steps you're taking. Is your ankle going up? Is your ankle pointing up, pointing down, and things like that. So they actually have the ability to watch your ankle motion as well.
So what I'm hearing is that this is a powered, energized, or roboticized, or however we want to call it, system that ideally for foot drop, and you can have it only on one leg at a time, and you can wear.
Technically put it on both legs, but I think because it's one motor and one controller for the left leg, you could, I guess, have one motor and one controller for the right leg.
Right, but I mean it as an advantage because we've seen quite a few exoskeletons be symmetrical.
Correct.
Where it's difficult to get it to be only on one leg at a time. And you can also wear your own shoes, which is kind of unusual for a leg exoskeleton. Usually, a lot of the time we see that they come with a specialized shoe. So it looks like there's some innovation there happening.
Yeah, I like the idea of using your own shoe because you get more proprioception with the ground. There has been some talk about some of the larger spinal cord injury devices with very kind of rigid foot plates. And I understand why they have them because they've got a large motorized system. But you're kind of walking on top of a plate, where here you're walking with your shoe. Yes.
Yeah, that is your own shoe, not someone else's.
Yes. It took only 1 to 2 minutes to put it on. Basically, I strapped on a knee brace. I strapped on like a little foot crampon, and then the motor clicked in here. The motor clicked in here, and then they had a motor controller, and away you went.
So it's this like attachment system that we're seeing more and more of, where there's an intermediary like belt strap system, and then once those like soft elements are connected, then and only then you go and you attach the motors.
Right. They had a soft element at the shoe, a soft brace, and then a carbon fiber bracket, and then you just connected with a pin. You connected the motor to the bracket, and with a pin you connected the motor to the crampons.
Did that feel natural?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, because this is something that we talked about maybe 8 or 9 years ago in one of the first WEA committee meetings, how we could end up in a universe where exoskeletons come in 2 layers. You have a layer that goes over the clothing, and then the exoskeleton goes over that intermediary layer.
Yes.
And it seems to me like we're seeing more and more of these devices now that do just that.
Yeah. And I think what people are thinking about, I also would like to make a comment where people are thinking about soft systems where it needs to be comfortable, and some rigid, brackets where you need to hold on to the motor. So, there's this idea that I have a rigid exoskeleton, or this idea that I have a exosuit. Well, I think, which obviously makes sense. I think you're getting combinations of the two with devices.
Yeah. And I think we've even seen it where you don't even have to have motors. I think we've seen an elastic passive one that's spring activated that also uses this strategy, where you put the belts on first, and then you have the frame and the springs clip on.
Right.
Nice. Okay, what else did you see on the floor?
So they didn't have a booth. Wandercraft was, I think anyway, let me just say this. Wandercraft was in the second day that I was there. I noticed that there was a Wandercraft device in one of the exhibit booths, and people were trying it on. And again, a hands-free personal exoskeleton that allows you to get up and walk and regain mobility and freedom in the home and in their community. So there was people walking around. Someone would put it on, and then they would walk around the conference with the device. So again, another hands-free device.
It seems like this conference brought the top of the line companies and devices. This is like the newest of the new.
Right.
Most impressive.
I just bring this one up because they were there. Woodway Treadmills was there. So they have unique products for rehabilitation. They had, they had a device there that you could fill it up with air, and you would be inside of it, and it would relieve some of your body weight. So let's see, maybe the climber.
Well, that sounds kind of similar to the Alter G.
It was similar to the Alter G, but I hadn't seen it before. So, let's see. Maybe I'm not on there. Beyond treadmills, manual treadmills, but Woodway was there. So let's see. I guess if you allow me for a quick sec, Bobby.
Nice to emphasize that this was not exoskeleton on the conference. This was medical robotics and physical rehabilitation devices.
Right. So let's see, woodway.com, a gantry type device, and split belt systems. I'm familiar with their split belt systems. Let's see, dynamic sport, so motorized treadmills. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that there was devices there that, were assisting in mobility as well.
Nice.
Also, Robotomize, I believe it's out of Singapore. And they were there with a large booth showing off hip exoskeletons and shoulder exoskeletons. And they had a hand device, let's say, to help with your hand after stroke therapy. So this device, people were wearing at the conference, so active electric exoskeleton with motorized actuators. And, I think it could probably be used in logistics like they're showing, but it can also probably be used in rehabilitation because they were there at the conference talking about rehabilitation. And
Yeah, talk about merging the line between applications.
yes. And then they had this device was there, upper limb exoskeleton with an upper limb control system, and then to help empower people. So they had that device there. And then this one is then since they're saying it's a mechanically energy stored exoskeleton, I believe that it would just be a passive, spring system.
So they had both active and passive potentially dual use,
Right.
medical and occupational. Fascinating. Yeah, I love it when we blur the line. It's the whole motto of the Exoskeleton Report that we need to keep an eye on all exoskeleton technology.
It's a hand device to assist patients in regaining hand motion in that sense.
They must have got a pretty sizable booth.
They did. So RobotCT had a very large booth. XoMotion had a very large booth. Fourier had a large booth. And then Robotomize had a large booth.
Nice. What else? What else did you
see? I want to just quickly talk about a little bit of the stuff I was doing. We were thinking about, again, a hands-free, fall-safe device. But what it does is you don't sit in the device. The seat is actually angled. And basically, it gives you the freedom to walk around and be hands-free. So you could use it in your, right? So you can use it in your kitchen. You can be hands-free, and it allows people to walk and that maybe have less mobility. So to give an example, Blue came to the conference specifically to kind of work with us and see us. And please, you're welcome to watch her videos. But what we were excited about, and she was putting on a podcast while we were there, but what we were excited about was that she said she hadn't got up and walked for a while. She was able to walk with the device, and she hadn't walked in over 8 or 9 months, and she was up and walking, having fun, smiling, and so please take a look at her videos.
Yeah, I think that she did a live cast also.
Right, but if I click on it, I'll have to find.
There's you.
Yeah. Seeing if she's gonna.
Well, even this is fine. Just it shows people.
What was interesting is she would sit and chat and just drink a cup of coffee and not even, it's just stand up and talk, right? And not even really think about, right? So if you see, she's standing up and talking while holding on to a puppy, and this puppy was pulling us all around, right? So, you could just move around, and
I think that's you holding onto the puppy right now.
that's me.
Yeah, so Blue did several hours worth of a live cast directly from the showroom floor. So that's still on YouTube. For those who are interested, go on her channel, Blue Eye Queen, on YouTube, and you can feel like you're there yourself. So she just transferred out of the life glider and onto her scooter. And as far as I understand, Tom, the life glider, its primary function is like gravity compensation and stabilization to keep you from falling. So it's like an alternative to the walker, where you no longer have to lean forward.
Right. So the idea is, let's see, the idea quickly was that on a walker, your center of gravity is in front of you, you're leaning forward, and you're poised to fall over. Where this device, securely keeps you standing straight up with a nice posture. You're not worried about falling over, so you can just sit and chat and talk, have a cup of coffee. You could be in the kitchen doing things. And so it's very, it's surprisingly good. Because actually we were last pictures, we were using it in the conference just as a stand-up chair, or you can use it as a stand-up desk. And then my legs and my feet were not sore at night because I would just kind of lean into the device while I was talking to people.
How was the reaction to it?
I think the reaction to it was quite good. I think people are still a little bit interested in, like, would I still want to just use a cane? Would I still want to use a walker? Would I still want to use a rollator? So, a lot of people think about, just the standard cane, the standard rollators, the standard walkers. And so this is different. This is behind you, but the nice thing about it being behind you is no one sees anything when you're talking to the person face to face. You get stability, you look straight ahead, and you just walk, quite nicely. Anyway, I think that's about it for the conference. I mean, I'll go back to the Rehab Week, reach out to the different societies, talk to them. Maybe we'll do another podcast in the future to talk about the scientific information, the keynote speakers and the workshops. Maybe we could bring someone on to talk about those. But as I said, I spent most of my time in the exhibition hall.
So what I'm getting out of this is that it's one of the first conferences where multiple exoskeleton related societies put together their resources to make this happen. And on paper, at least, some of them are, like you could say, even competitors. Like I think ACRM has their own Rehabilitation Robotics conference later this year.
Right.
And one could only dream of something like this happening on the occupational side too. I'm hearing from you that it was like a split event where you had your usual closed door talks and conference and discussions, but it also leaned heavily giving medical professionals the opportunity to touch, feel, understand, ask questions about the devices. So it's not like a two-dimensional website and marketing videos, but you get to see it, you get to try it on.
And where I thought I was very happy to see is a lot of, exoskeleton companies with large booths, not one device, but a suite of devices, and really try to, build the industry. So that was great news.
Yeah, and I think the majority of them are already on the Exoskeleton Report catalog. Let me just make sure that's why I've been like turning my head back and forward as you're talking about these. I've been checking the website to see what is missing. Any final thoughts on the conference, Tom?
A wonderful conference put on in Chicago with, over 1,400 people. Wonderful conference where different societies came together to collaborate, and the exhibition hall was full of exoskeletons. So it was exciting. I really had a fun time.
Oh, I'm glad that you got to go there. I'm really happy that Blue was there and she was able to do a live cast. That way I felt that I was there for a little bit as well. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your thoughts and experiences. I'm so happy to see the field evolving and continuing to move forward. If you like content like this, please support us on Patreon. We also have a weekly newsletter that's been now coming out 30 weeks in a row, where we condense all of the events that are related to this technology field. Please consider supporting us. We also have a media kit out if you want to advertise with us as well. And once again, special thanks to all of our current sponsors. We'll catch you all next time. Bye.
Bye.